This year we are doing a flipped classroom in math. That means that you will be watching homework videos, learning the math from the lesson, and the next day in the classroom we're going to be doing practice questions, and your teachers will be there to help you to really solidify our understanding of the math concepts. So this is our first flipped classroom video for the year. I want you to open up your Envision book to page 10 and also open up your math notebook to the next blank page. It's important for us to have very organized math notebooks. That way, if we want to see your work from your homework, you can open right up to that page and show us where you did your work the night before. So, in order for us to stay organized, we're going to start by writing the date on the top of the page in your math notebook. So today's date would be September / fill in whatever number it is / the year 21. Okay, so you're always going to start your homework by writing the date on the top of the page. You can also write the lesson, which is 1-1, and we are going to be splitting the lessons up into 2 parts. So this first part of lesson 1-1 is 1-1A. So this way, if I said to you, hey, open up to your homework from last night, lesson 1-1A, you can open right up to that page in the notebook. So the essential question for this first lesson says, how can you add, subtract, and multiply with decimals? Today we are just going to focus on adding and subtracting decimals because they have similar rules. So let's look at this first example here. Kim and Martin swam 50 meters. Martin took 0.26 seconds longer than Kim. What was Martin's time in the race? Okay, so looking at this question, there's some extra information here that we don't need. The extra information is that they swam a 50-meter race. We don't need to know how many meters long the race was. Now, let's read the next part. It says Martin took 26 hundredths of a second longer than Kim. So that means that Martin was swimming longer than Kim. If we have the amount of time Kim had, right, we're going to have Kim's length of time plus the 0.26 seconds is going to equal Martin's time. So that's just a little equation here that's going to help us to solve the problem. We have Kim's time plus the 0.26 seconds longer it took for Martin to swim is going to equal Martin's time. So now also, whatever I'm writing on the video, you should be writing in your notebook. We're working together to solve this question. So now we have to use the information from the picture to fill in Kim's time or Martin's time. We have to see what information they gave us. Well, if we look in the picture, they told us Kim's time here. Kim's time is 50.9 seconds. So we'll have 50.9 seconds plus that 0.26 is going to equal Martin's time. So now we have a adding problem with decimals. We have to add these two numbers together and they have decimal points. So the key when adding and subtracting with decimals is to line up the decimals. And if we line up the decimals, that also means we're going to be lining up the place value. So first I'm going to write my 50.9. Now, when I look at 50.9, I know that there's a 0 in the ones place, a 5 in the tens place. The 9, what place value is that 9 in? The 9 is in the tenths place. And after the tenths place would be the hundredths place. So we have ones, tens, next would be hundreds. And going with the decimals, we have tenths, hundredths, next would be thousandths. So that's a quick little review to help us with our place value here, because when we add decimals, we have to line up the decimal points and line up the place values. So now I'm going to look at my 0.26 here. Well, I'm going to have to line up my decimal point. The 0 is in the first place value to the left of the decimal. That's the ones place. So my 0 in 0.26 is going to be underneath my 0 in 50.9. The 2 is in the tenths place, so that means I'm going to put it under the 9 in the tenths place. And then I have my 6 in the hundredths place. So I lined up my place values here. I lined up my decimal points, I lined up my place values. But now I have to fill in these blanks because I have a 6 here and I have a 6 with nothing on top of it. Well, what am I going to add with that 6? What number can I add to the end of 50.9 that isn't going to change the value there? I can add a 0, and it's like a placeholder. It doesn't change the value. I can also add a 0 in this tens place, and it doesn't change the value. So now I have all of my place values filled in. I don't have any blanks. I can add. So the first step I want us to do when we add or subtract decimals is bring down that decimal point. That way we don't have to worry about remembering the decimal when we're done. So now we can add 0 plus 6. Look at how nice and neat I have my place values lined up so that I can add them. 0 plus 6 is 6. 9 plus 2 is 11. So I'm going to write down the 1 in the ones place in 11, carry the 1 from the tens. 1 plus 0 is 1. 5 plus 0 is 5. So my answer is 51.16 seconds. It took more than 51.16 seconds to swim the race. Okay, now we're going to look at example 2, which is on page 11. Example 2 says, Amy ran a race in 20.7 seconds. Katie finished the race 0.258 seconds before Amy. How long did it take Katie to run the race? So thinking about this word problem, who was the faster runner? Was Amy the faster runner or Katie the faster runner? Katie's the faster runner because Katie finished the race seconds before Amy. So we're going to have Amy's time. We're going to have Amy's time minus that 0.258, and that's going to give us Katie's time. Because Katie was faster. So we're going to take Amy's time, which is at 20.7, and then we're going to subtract that 0.258, and that's going to give us Katie's time. So we have our subtraction sentence here, and we're going to have to subtract with decimals. So just like when we added with decimals, we had to line up the decimals and the place values. That's the same thing for subtracting. Line up decimals. If you line up the decimals and you line up the place values, that's the first step for your success. And then you just have to do the adding or the subtracting. So I'm going to rewrite this. I'm starting with my first number, 20.7. You should also be writing this in your notebook, 20.7. Now I have to subtract that 0.258. First step, line up the decimal point. And now I'm just rewriting it. My 0's in the ones place, 0 in the ones place. 2 in the tenths place, 2 in the tenths place. 5, 8. Make sure you copy the numbers carefully. So now, what number can I fill in above the 5 and above the 8? That will not change the value of that 20.7. I will be able to fill in, or I have to fill in zeros here. And I'm going to fill in a 0 there. Okay, so now we're ready to subtract. We start from the top to the bottom. So, and I start on the right. So, 0 minus 8. I can't do 0 minus 8. I'm going to have to borrow. So, I look now to the left. That first number to the left of that 0 is another 0, so I can't borrow from there. So now I'm going to look again to the left of that. It's a 7. I'm going to borrow from that 7. The 7 will become a 6, which then I bring over a 110, and I have 10 here. But my job's not done. I'm going to borrow from that 10. It will become a 9, and then this 0 can become my 10. So now I can subtract. 10 minus 8 is 2. And before I started subtracting, I forgot a step. What step did I forget that I should have done before I started even regrouping or subtracting? I should have brought down that decimal point. Now I'm ready to subtract. 10 minus 8 is 2. 9 minus 5 is 4. 6 minus 2 is 4. 0 minus 0, 0. 2 minus 0, 2. So because I already started by bringing down that decimal point, I don't have to worry about forgetting it when I'm done. So my answer is that Katie ran the race in 20.442 seconds, which would also be 20 and 442 thousandths seconds. Okay, so now we're just going to do 2 practice questions in our video, and then tomorrow in class we are going to do more practice together and then independently through an exit ticket. So the first question I want you to do is number 5. Please make sure you're numbering it in your notebook. Number 5 says 5.9 plus 2.7. So I want you to rewrite this addition question in your notebook, remembering to line up the decimals. So when I write this addition question, I should have 5.9 plus, okay, let's see, my decimal point. 2 is in the ones place, so that goes underneath my 5 in the ones place. 7's in the tenths place, underneath the 9 in the tenths place. That's how you should have lined this up. If you didn't line this up, please fix it and then solve the question. So what is 5.9 plus 2.7? 5.9 plus 2.7 is, well, 9 plus 7 is 16. Write down the 6, carry the 1. 5 plus 1 plus 2 is 8. So the answer is 8.6. Look at how nice and neat we have this written so that it's easy for us to follow. Next, let's try number 6, and then we will be done for our video. So number 6 says 4.01 minus 2.95. So first step, rewrite this in your notebook, making sure you line up the decimals and line up the place values. Okay, so you should have it lined up, lining up the decimals, lining up the ones, tenths, and hundredths places. So now you can subtract what is 4 and 100th minus 2 and 95 hundredths. So I have to borrow here. My 4 will become a 3. Then this 0 becomes a 10. That 10 has to become a 9, and then the 1 can become an 11. So now I have 11 minus 5 is 6. 9 minus 9 is 0. Bring down the decimal. 3 minus 2 is 1. So my answer is 1.06.